what follows. The temptress, with the subtlety of the old serpent, is pouring lies into her ear, telling her they both are captives, and both will perish unless she consents to purchase their deliverance at the price of her soul, and she offers her a bond to sign such a bond as, alas! thou and I, Chattox, have signed. But Alizon rejects it with horror, and gazes at her false mother as if she suspected the delusion. But the temptress is not to be beaten thus. She renews her entreaties, casts herself on the ground, and clasps my child's knees in humblest supplication. Oh, that Alizon would place her foot upon her neck and crush her! But it is not so. The good act. She raises her, and tells her she would willingly die for her, but her soul was given to her by her Creator, and must be returned to him. Oh, that I had thought of this!" "And what answer makes the spirit?" asked the witch. "It laughs derisively," replied Mistress Nutter, "and proceeds to use all those sophistical arguments which we have so often heard, to pervert her mind and overthrow her principles. But Alizon is proof against them all. Religion and virtue support her, and make her more than a match for her opponent. Equally vain are the spirit's attempts to seduce her by the offer of a life of sinful enjoyment. She rejects it with angry scorn. Failing in argument and entreaty, the spirit now endeavours to work upon her fears, and paints in appalling colours the tortures she will have to endure, contrasting them with the delight she is voluntarily abandoning, with the lover she might espouse, with the high worldly position she might fill." "What are worldly joys and honours compared with those of heaven?" exclaims Alizon. "I would not exchange them. The spirit, then, in a vision, shows her her lover Richard, and asks her if she can resist his entreaties. The trial is very sore as she gazes on that beloved form, seeing by its passionate gestures to implore her to assent. But she is firm, and the vision disappears. The ordeal is now over. Alizon has triumphed over all their arts. The spirit in my likeness resumes its fiendish shape, and with a dreadful menace against the poor girl, vanishes from her sight." "Mother Demdike's not done with her yet," observed Chattox. "You are right," replied Mistress Nutter. "The old hag descends the staircase leading to the vault, and approaches the miserable captive. With her there are no supplications, no arguments, but commands and terrible threats. She is as unsuccessful as her envoy. Alizon has gained courage, and defies her." "Ha! does she so?" exclaimed Mother Chattox. "I am glad of it." "The solid floor resounds with the stamping of the enraged witch," pursued Mistress Nutter. "She tells Alizon she will take her to Pendle Hill at midnight, and there offer her up as a sacrifice to the Fiend. My child replies that she trusts for her deliverance to heaven, that her body may be destroyed, but that her soul cannot be harmed. Scarcely are the words uttered, than a terrible clangour is heard. The walls of the dungeon seem breaking down, and the ponderous columns reel. The demon statue rises on its throne, and a stream of flame issues from its brow. The doors of the cells burst open, and with clanking of chains and other dismal noises, skeleton shapes stalk forth from them, each with a pale blue light above its head. Monstrous beasts, like tiger cats, with rough black skins and flaming eyes, are moving about, and looking as though they would spring upon the captive. Two gravestones are now pushed aside, and from the cold earth arise the forms of Blackburn the robber, and his paramour, the dissolute Isole de Heton. She joins the grisly throng now approaching the distracted girl, who falls insensible to the ground." "Can you say aught more?" asked the hag, as Mistress Nutter still bent eagerly over the caldron. "No, the whole chamber is buried in darkness," replied the lady, I can see nothing of my poor child. What will become of her?" "I will question Fancy," replied the hag, throwing some fresh ingredients into the chafing dish; and as the smoke arose, she vociferated, "Come hither, Fancy. I want thee, my fondling, my sweet. Come quickly. Ah! thou art here." The familiar was still invisible to Mistress Nutter, but a slight sound made her aware of his presence. "And now, my sweet Fancy," pursued the hag, "tell us, if thou canst, what will be done with Alizon, and what course we must pursue to free her from old Demdike." "At present she is in a state of insensibility," replied a harsh voice, "and she will be kept in that condition till she is conveyed to the summit of Pendle Hill. I have already told you it is useless to attempt to take her from Malkin Tower. It is too well guarded. Your only chance will be to interrupt the sacrifice." "But how, my sweet Fancy? How, my little darling?" inquired the hag. "It is a perplexing question," replied the voice; "for by showing you how to obtain possession of the girl, I disobey my lord." "Ah! but you serve me you please me, my pretty Fancy," cried the hag. "You shall quaff your fill of blood on the morrow if you do this for me. I want to get rid of my old enemy, to catch her in her own toils, to send her to a dungeon, to burn her. You must help me, my little sweetheart." "I will do all I can," replied the voice; "but Mother Demdike is cunning and powerful, and high in favour with my lord. You must have mortal aid as well as mine. The officers of justice must be there to seize her at the moment when the victim is snatched from her, or she will baffle all your schemes." "And how shall we accomplish this?" asked Mother Chattox. "I will tell you," said Mistress Nutter to the hag. "Let him put on the form of Richard Assheton, and in that guise hasten to Rough Lee, where he will find the young man's cousin Nicholas, to whom he must make known the dreadful deed about to be enacted on Pendle Hill. Nicholas will at once engage to interrupt it. He can arm himself with the weapons of justice by taking with him Roger Nowell, the magistrate, and his myrmidon, Potts, the attorney, both of whom are detained prisoners in the house by my orders." "The scheme promises well, and shall be adopted," replied the hag; "but suppose Richard himself should appear first on the scene. Dost know where he is, my sweet Fancy?" "When I last saw him," replied the voice, "he was lying senseless on the ground at the foot of Malkin Tower, having been precipitated from the doorway by Mother Demdike. You need apprehend no interference from him." "It is well," replied Mother Chattox. "Then take his form, my pet, though it is not half as handsome as thy own." "A black skin and goat like limbs are to thy taste, I know," replied the familiar, with a laugh. "Let me look upon him before he goes, that I may be sure the likeness is exact," said Mistress Nutter. "Thou hearest, Fancy. Become visible to her," cried the hag. And as she spoke, a figure in all respects resembling Richard stood before them. "Well, what think you of him? Will he do?" said Mother Chattox. "Ay," replied the lady; "and now send him off at once. There is no time to lose." "I shall be there in the twinkling of an eye," said the familiar; "but I own I like not the task." "There is no help for it, my sweet Fancy," cried the hag. "I cannot forego my triumph over old Demdike. Now away with thee, and when thou hast executed thy mission, return and tell us how thou hast sped in the matter." The familiar promised obedience to her commands, and disappeared. CHAPTER XIV.